Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, and we're also going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of the country. For this review we are going to return to a brewery that you've seen me review many things from before, and I've actually been reviewing a lot of lagers from these guys over the last while, but that's not going to change today. We are going to look at another lager beer, but this one is a little bit kind of unique actually, so I'm very curious to see how it turns out. For this review then we are going to head to Eslöv, which is a little bit to the kind of northeast-ish of me here in Lund. And we're having a look at yet another beer from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri. So this particular beer is called the Skånsk Pilsner. It comes in at 5% ABV, and this one is brewed with Skånsk hops and Skånsk malts as well actually. So this should be very, very interesting. So yeah, the beers that I've had directly before this one from Remmarlöv, that was the Rauch, which was a really nice, very slightly smoky lager. Before that it was the Akoya, which had a really unique kind of German hop variety in it, and I think the one before that was the Melix, which was a grapefruit oil infused Helles actually, and those were all really nice. But yeah, when I saw this one come out I thought, you know, I really need to have a go at that actually. So yeah, very, very curious to see how this one turns out. These guys do know what they're doing when it comes to the lager styles, but it has been a while since I've had a Pils. I'm not sure if I've had a Pilsner from these guys before actually. This could well be the first Pils, but yeah, it's a style that I really have been getting into over the last little while, and as I've said on many videos before, I think the German lager beers have really been neglected for a long time in favour of the IPAs and things like that. So yeah, definitely nice to see a little bit more attention being paid to the German and Czech lager beers over the last little while. But this beer was released as part of the Lokal Småskaligt assortment in Systembolaget for September of 2020. I'm not sure if it will return next year. When they did these kind of Skånsk themed beers before, the local, I think that was the local hops they always used to do. When they did these, they always used to release them once a year actually, so maybe this is a beer that will appear, you know, once a year or something like that, who knows. But yeah, definitely curious to try this one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri before. I must have done about 12 at least from this brewery, and there will definitely be more added to that in the near future, because these guys are getting more and more prolific these days. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beers based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've told you many a time before, Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri are based on a farm in Eslöv out to the north of Lund. If you see the word Gård on a Swedish, Danish, Norwegian beer, usually the brewery will be associated with some kind of farm. Oppigårds is probably the most prominent example I can think of in Sweden, and you have Abeltoft Gårdsbryggeri over in Denmark as well. Those guys are quite popular too. But these guys have been brewing on the farm since the autumn-winter of 2014, and then in January of 2015 they started selling their beers through Systembolaget, the state-owned alcohol stores here in Sweden. But the owner and founder of this company is Håkan Nilsson, and together with his wife Michelle, he started his plan for a brewery a couple of years ago, and the brewery is located on his family's farm. Apparently he is the 5th generation of his family to farm the countryside here in Skåne. But the old barn was renovated and a brew house of 1500 litres was installed, and he hired Hampus Olofsson as a brewer in August of 2014, and he previously worked for Malmö Brewing Company. Very nice guy actually. I have met him twice I think, and hopefully we can get him on the channel at some point for a kind of meet the brewery segment. Actually, I do need to contact these guys and see if we can make that happen. It would be cool to get Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri on the channel, because I've reviewed so many of their beers, and it's been interesting to watch these guys grow over the last while actually. But over the last few years they've been gradually expanding their capacity. They now have a 3,000 litre brew kit, and they've invested in various new fermentation tanks. They did that mainly back in spring of 2018, and this takes their capacity at the brewery up to a possible 800,000 litres. So I think they are just kind of gradually working up to that capacity over the next little while. In 2019 they also opened up their summer pub, which was opening up every Wednesday, and I think they had been planning expansion over 2020, but I'm not sure if that has come to fruition because of the whole kind of COVID-19 situation, obviously. But these guys, once everything kind of calms down, I'm sure they will continue to grow. These guys are doing some very, very nice beers. A lot of kind of hazy New England double IPAs recently in the little 330ml cans. A lot of lagers as well. And yeah, they've not done a new stout and things for a while actually. It'd be cool to see them have a go at like a kind of sweet stout or something like that actually. It'd be nice to, I'd be interested to see how they would do with a Dunkel lager as well, because they have done a lot of Helles lagers recently. A Dunkel and a Schwarzbier would be a kind of interesting step for these guys to take as well. But as of September 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 50 different kinds of beer. So yeah, very, very curious to see what this one has in store for us. And yeah, let's leave it at that for the history section. If you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. They are quite active on there. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's have a little look at this one then and see how we get on. So yeah, this one I think is pretty nicely done actually. I do like the fact that it has the Skånsk flag on it. I might keep this bottle actually. I've got a few bottles and stuff and cans that I've been keeping aside for my display that will go behind me when I move apartments later. But yeah, I do like the fact that this has the Skånsk flag on it there. As you can see, it's basically a Denmark flag but with a Swedish yellow cross on it actually. I'm not sure how the local people will appreciate me saying that, but you know, it is one of the things, you know, a lot of other Swedes make fun of Skåne and say, you know, you guys are like Danes basically. So yeah, it is quite funny. But yeah, malt from Skåne, malt from here, hops from Skåne, and brewed in Skåne as well. But there you can see it has got the counties outline here at the bottom too, which is a nice touch. And there you can see the usual Remmarlöv hen chicken on the side there as well, and that is also on the bottom of the bottle there. So it says on the side here, a taste of Skåne. This beer is brewed only with Skånsk ingredients. Malt from Skånsk farms and hops from Kronogården in Staffanstorp. That's a hop farm. The guy over there has a really interesting setup, and he's got his own little kind of pilot brewery in the barn as well actually. And this beer is the beer is light and fresh, and it fits well with what is that, egg? I can't. It fits well with eggs and rabagrud, and is that? I'm not sure exactly what those things are there. So yeah, it fits a bit. I think it's saying it fits well with kind of egg foods, and I'm not sure what rabagruden is, but yeah, we'll need to see about that. But yeah, I'm sure I just want to drink this one on its own anyway and see what it's like. So yeah, 5% Pilsner beer, this one brewed with Skånsk malts and hops from Kronogården's over near Staffanstorp. I knew it was away out to the east of Skåne, but I didn't realise it was down. It was technically part of Staffanstorp actually, Kronogården's. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. The other thing to note about this beer is that it's actually, as you can see, it's in a bottle rather than a can. Whereas the other beers that we've had recently from these guys have been 440s or 330 cans. So I'm not sure about that. I wonder why they've chosen the bottle for this one, because they could have released it in a 330 can. But yeah, probably they've put the volume of this one down because it is quite a novelty, so they wanted more bottles to be available for order actually. But I can tell you straight away, I can smell from here, the aroma of this one is pretty damn authentic actually. I'm very, very curious about this. You could see that when we opened the bottle, this one poured with about a third finger of a frothy white head. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. You can see there's quite a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, but I mean overall it does look pretty damn nice actually. I really like how this one is, is going together. You can see it is crystal clear. If I put my fingers behind the glass, this one is crystal damn clear. But yeah, nice kind of pale golden straw colour, perfect white head, quite a little bit of active carbonation visible there. That's not surprising at all for a Pilsner. This beer looks exactly as you would expect from a Pilsner. Some of them can be a little bit hazy, some of them can be very, very clear like this. Usually the main difference between a Pilsner and a Helles or the Czech Svetli is usually that the Svetlis and the Helles beers, Czech Svetlis and German Helles, are usually a bit more kind of bready and things, whereas the Pilsner is distinctly more crisp. Of course, this style was originally brewed in the province of Bohemia, which was the Austro-Hungarian Empire, kind of a mix between Czechs and Germans used to live there. But the beer itself was created by an ethnic German brewer. Apparently not a very nice guy, but these days the kind of foremost Pilsner, I guess you could say, is Pilsner Urquell, and the city is called Pilsen, whereas it was called Pilsner when it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But yeah, interesting stuff. But yeah, it looks very nice. Let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see where we get on. See how we get on. Brain is really getting terrible. My English is getting bad these days. So yeah, the aroma of this one is actually very, very nice. Oddly enough, you know, it smells very authentic and very German, which is kind of interesting considering they're using all the Skånsk malts. I thought it would smell a little bit different on that basis, but yeah, if I was blind smelling this, I would think this was a German brewed Pilsner. I have to be straight up about that. So yeah, straight away with this beer, you do get a nice little bit of that kind of, you get a wee bit of breadiness out of it, but you can really smell the crispness of that Pilsner malt sitting on top of it. This one for me has quite a bit of biscuity character. You really get quite a sweet McVitie's digestive biscuity note out of this one. It does have a wee bit of graininess to it as well actually, but I would say that overall the aroma of this beer for me on the malty side of things, it really does lean towards that yeah, it really does lean towards that kind of slightly bready and kind of quite biscuity sort of thing actually. I really like how that goes together in this one. Yeah, the aroma that comes out of this I think is very, very nice. I'm a big fan of this style, as those of you watching the channel regularly will know. I love a good Helles beer, a good Pilsner, a good Dunkel. I love these lager style beers. But yeah, the aroma for me is absolutely solid on that. You can smell the hops come across as a bit different in this one, so you get a wee bit of earthiness out of it. The floral character that you get out of these Kronogården hops, I think, is it has got a big floral character to it, but it smells like quite a deep and almost slightly wet floral character that you get out of it. They were growing. It was mainly Magnum, if I remember rightly, and I think it might have been a local Cascade that they were growing in there as well. And there's a few other new varieties that they're growing at Kronogården's as well. They have been playing around with breeding them and things. But yeah, they have got a nice little small setup there actually. So yeah, and I think they have been expanding the farm gradually over the last while actually. It's quite cool that we can have beers with local hops, I have to say. You know, I wouldn't have thought that Sweden would be a place that you could grow hops much in the same way that Scotland. I don't think you could really grow hops here. But yeah, the aroma that you get out of the hops here is it's distinctively more wet, I think. And of course, things like the minerals in your soil, the water and stuff like that, all of these are going to affect the different characteristics of your hop as well as the kind of genetic makeup of them. I mean, you do get New Zealand Cascade and you also get American Cascade, and they are quite different actually. I'd love to get some New Zealand Cascade and some American ones, do a single hop homebrew or something, and then compare the two beers. I think that would be a really interesting experiment, because it would show you how much the actual growth process of these hops can affect the beers. But yeah, the floral notes out of this come across as quite deep and quite wet for me at the same time, but there is a wee touch of spiciness to them. It has that lovely big kind of floral aromaticity, which is great. You've got a bit of a lighter grassiness coming out of it as well, but again, the grassiness for me comes across as quite wet in this one. And it's not too zesty, this beer actually. There is a wee bit of a kind of lemony, zesty type quality, but yeah, mainly it's it mainly is quite a kind of big grassy. So it's mainly that deep floral note that comes out on the green side of the hops. On the fruity side of the beer, you do have a bit of a kind of lemony citrus to this one. It's not too zesty though. Actually, again, it comes across as quite wet. You're getting some apple and peary esters out of the beer, and yeah, as I was saying, it really comes across as quite an authentic German Pilsner actually. The thing that does give it away though a little bit is that slightly wetter floral quality from the Skånsk hops. I do think it's probably the Magnum that's in this one. I'd be curious to know exactly what variety it is that they've used in it, but in terms of a Pilsner style beer, I think it smells really nice and really authentic actually. I thought the malts would have smelled a wee bit different, but they don't particularly, I have to say. So yeah, curious to see what this one has in store for us then. Take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma and get a little bit of a whiff of those Skånsk hops. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. This one is the Skånsk Pilsner, coming in at 5% ABV from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri here in Skåne in the very south of Sweden, brewed with Skånsk malt and Skånsk hops. Slange, skål. Ooh, that's a very bright and also very kind of wet Pilsner actually. I like that. I do like that. Yeah, this is very nice actually. It's I mean, one of the things I was wondering when this beer came out, you know, the one that there's a number of good lager beers here in Skåne now. I mean, Rocket Brewing Company have their Moulins Gold. That's a really nice lager beer. I mean, that one, that I think you can. I don't know whether you would consider that a Helles or a Pilsner, to be honest with you. I think it's somewhere in between. But you have the Skånsk Lager as well from Hyllie Brewery. That's very nice. And now you've got this. It would be awesome. I think it would be really cool if these guys could produce this on a regular basis. I don't know whether the maltery and Kronogårdens could cope with that actually, if this was to be brewed as a regular beer. I'm not sure if they have the demand to do it year round, but at least what I would say to Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri, do this at least as a seasonal, or maybe release it, you know, in the first harvest and the second harvest. Do something like that with it, because this is absolutely solid. I think this is really nice. I mean, I like the Helles beers that these guys were doing, but personally I think this Pils is a bit better than those. I do actually. Yeah, I'm a fan of this style, as you know, and I think this is really nicely done. This is one of the more it's quite a bright Pilsner, this one. It's got a bit more wetness to it, but it does have the kind of floral notes and the kind of crispness to it that you would expect. That comes out a little bit later on in this one, but this one gets a big thumbs up from me. As I say, I enjoyed the Helles beers that I had from these guys over the last little while, but I think this one, to me, this is just a little bit better actually. Just personally, I like this one a bit better. Some of you guys watching might disagree. Let me know what your favourite beer, let me know what your favourite lager beer from these guys has been over the last little while, but this one just kind of strikes me a bit more. It could well be the kind of novelty side of it, but I think the malty side of the beer is nice. The hoppy side of it as well comes across really nicely, and it just feels like quite a bright, almost summery beer almost, this one. So yeah, big thumbs up to Remmarlöv for this actually. I like this for sure. Yeah, that is good. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. I think Remmarlöv have done a very good job here. So, straight away with this beer, you can feel that nice kind of white bready kind of malt base. That blankets the middle of your tongue. But as you go further into the aftertaste, you can feel that it's almost like the middle of your tongue just kind of wet, you know, just gets wetter and wetter and wetter, and it does become gradually more and more crisp the further you go into it. But as you get that kind of more wet quality coming out of it, it does get gradually sweeter as well, which is really interesting. That's definitely a very interesting aspect to this beer that you have to think about. The wetness that comes out of this is very nicely done actually. So yeah, if you go towards the back third of your palate there, you can feel that bit of breadiness underneath. But then on the back third of the palate, you can feel those, it has got a wee bit of graininess there, and you can feel the nice crisp notes from that Pilsner malt just sitting on top of that. But at the same time, it is crisp, but it just retains a little bit of that wetness there. It's definitely one of the wetter Pilsners that I've come across, but at the same time, it has a wee touch of an oily character. As you move further forward into that middle third of your palate, you really start to get more. Of a, what do you say? You start to get more of the sweetness. You can feel the crispness comes out a little bit more, but it's almost like you've just got a little oily layer sitting on top of that. So you've got that nice kind of, and if you go to the very centre of the palate, you've got a very nice kind of sweet caramelly sort of thing. And as you move further out from that, that very centre of the palate, you get some nice kind of more biscuity, McVitie's digestive type malty notes out of the beer. And yeah, I think the breadiness starts to come out a wee touch more the further you go into the aftertaste, but you can really feel the Pilsner malt starts to push its way out a little bit more the kind of further that you go into the a wee bit further that you go into the aftertaste. And yeah, I like how this one goes together actually. So the malt base in this one for me is really nicely done. Definitely a bit more oily, a little bit slick actually, and the wetness that you get out of this one, the kind of, it does have a wee bit of that kind of watery wetness there, and that's where the oily side of the beer comes out actually. It's really quite nice. I would say overall it's one of the slightly sweeter Pilsners that I've come across, one of the sweeter and more wet Pilsners that I've come across in recent times, but I certainly like how the malt base goes together on this one. Pilsners, of course, are quite a difficult style of beer to brew, but you know, Hampus has done a damn good job of that, and I think his Pilsners, you know, based on this one, I think potentially his Pilsners could be better than his Helles beers, which is interesting. And I do wonder why, actually, they've been so focused on lagers over the last little while. It's interesting that there's quite a few breweries in Sweden doing that at the moment. They're focusing more and more on the lager beers. I'm not complaining though, I like them, certainly. But yeah, the malt base in this one for me is really nicely done. You'll feel that kind of sweet, biscuity and slightly caramelly note coming out of this beer the further you go into the aftertaste. Very nicely done. On the hoppy side of things then, it's actually quite similar to what I was describing in terms of the aroma. There's a wee touch of earthiness there on the back of the palate, but as you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, the floral qualities of this beer just gradually build up. Again, it's quite a wet floral note that you get out of this one. For me, that you do get a nice little bit of a wet floral aromaticity for this one. It's quite deep, and then round the front curve of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of a lighter grassiness there. I'd say that the further you go into the aftertaste with this beer, the floral notes kind of linger there. It is, you know, the floral notes are not spicy, I would say. It's quite, I don't even know if you could describe it as aromatic. It's almost quite leafy and wet. That's where this beer really kind of sets itself apart from the German Pilsners and Czech Pilsens that I've had before. It's the way these hoppy characters come out. I think the malt base is pretty spot on for the style, but the floral notes are different. That's where it really stands out, and it suits. There's nothing wrong with it, don't get me wrong on that. I mean, it feels, on the hoppy side of things, it's quite a wet floral note that you get out of this one, and a wet grassiness. And I do suspect that it's probably the Magnum that they've used in this, the local Magnum variety. So yeah, it's very interesting that. The other possibility is that they've got some new hop that they've tested at Kronogårdens that really suits Pilsner style. Maybe that's why they've done this beer, because of the specific hop. Because I know that Remmarlöv and Kronogårdens do have quite a close relationship. They do talk to each other quite a lot. So yeah, it might well be something. I'd be curious to know about the hop in this. But yeah, in terms of the floral notes, it's the hoppy side of this beer for me is distinctly a bit wetter and a bit deeper almost. It's not quite got the kind of bitiness almost that you would get from some other beers, but I really like it. I do like how this beer goes together in that sense. The slightly wetter floral notes and the wetter grassiness as well. Gets a thumbs up from me for sure. So yeah, on the fruity side of things then, as I always say, on that front third of the palate, that's where you get the nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters push their way out of the beer. For me, on the fruity side of things, this beer, it has a little bit of a kind of stronger citrusy note further back on the front part of your palate. There is a wee bit of a lemony zesty thing there. As you move further forward, it does get a little bit more kind of peary. It does get gradually more peary. There's a wee bit of an appley note, but then on the very kind of front tip of the tongue, it's quite lemony. It does have a wee bit more of a kind of zesty quality to it. I wasn't really picking that up in the aroma actually, but there's a nice kind of lemony zesty quality comes out of this one, I have to say. So that gets a thumbs up from me for sure. In terms of the fruitiness, I'd say that overall the feel of that fruitiness is a little bit kind of wetter, but it does have a wee bit more of an oily character as well, and that almost helps promote the sweetness that you get further back in the palate too. But again, thumbs up to Remmarlöv for this one actually. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I think that's where we should go now. This beer for me, I'd say that it's one of the kind of thicker pilsners that I've come across actually. It's at the top end of light bodied, bottom end of mid bodied. The carbonation's quite smooth in this one actually. The mouthfeel overall is quite oily and quite wet. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I'd be surprised if this one has more than 20 IBUs. As I say, that's where this one sets itself apart, is those hoppy characters. They're a bit more wet and leafy and things like that. But you've got a nice wee bit of sweetness in the malt base, a wee bit of graininess in there as well, and some nice oily, fruity characters coming out of it too. But yeah, I really like how this one goes together for me. It's quite distinctly different from the other lager beers that I've had, but there's some really good examples of these styles in Skåne. Like I said, if you like the Skånsk lager from Brewery, their Fin Pilsner as well is a very nice beer, and if you like the Mullens Gold from Rocket Brewing Company, that's very nice. Elma Living also had their Elements recently that they released, and I really enjoyed that as well. That was a nice, more kind of hoppy. That was more like an IPL, to be honest with you. But yeah, there's a good selection of lager beer here these days. And if you get the chance to try some of them, I would recommend that you do. But I really hope that someone from Remmarlöv watches this review, and I would recommend that this beer is chosen to come back as a seasonal every year. I think they have done it nicely. This could be a really good core range beer, but as I say, I would question whether Carbonation'S could cope with the production for that. The malt, I wouldn't think the malt would be so much of a problem, but I honestly don't know. I know that the guy in Carbonation'S, who I did meet on one occasion, nice dude as well, I know that he was wanting to expand his hop farm, but I don't know. As I say, Remmarlöv are getting bigger and bigger these days. They're expanding, so to make this a regular beer available in the whole of Sweden, I'm not sure what the demand from Systembolaget would be, but in principle I'd love to see this one be one of the kind of flagship beers, if you like, of Remmarlöv. I think this would be a very, very cool one to do, and I like that, how they focus on Skånsk ingredients. They've done it for a while with the local hops releases that they used to do, but I think this is a really, really solid lager beer, really solid Pilsner, I should say, and I would love to see this one come back actually. I hope I can find this on tap in Malmö somewhere. I need to see maybe if Taproom have it actually, but yeah, this would be pretty nice. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this review. I think out of all the lager beers that I've had from Remmarlöv, this is the one that just kind of strikes me the most, and it's not just the novelty element of it being a wholly Skånsk beer, if you like. I think this one is really solidly done, so I'd love to see more Pilsners from Remmarlöv actually, and I'd love to see them have a go at a Schwarzbier and a Dunkel as well. That would be an interesting step for them to take. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. At this one it was the Skånsk Pilsner coming in at 5% ABV from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri in Eslöv, just to the north of me here in Lund in the south of Sweden. Check out this beer, check out the brewery if you haven't already, they're always doing some very, very interesting stuff. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri as well. Do let me know what your favourite has been over the last little while out of all these lager beers that they've done. That's quite an interesting point as well. But thank you again for watching my reviews. Check out all my social media, and I'll catch you guys there. The Skånsk Pilsner coming in at 5% ABV from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri just outside of Eslöv here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Slange, skål, cheers.